Welcome to the Houndsman XP podcast, and today we have our brothers from across the big pond in Norway. So we've got Bear Siragusa and Jorgen Larsen on the phone to talk to us about hound hunting in Norway. Bear, how are you today?
I'm doing great today. Yep. I'm having a good day. Excited to be here.
Yeah, good. Bear, you've been a faithful sponsor or follower, I should say, of Houndsman XP for a long time, and just thought it would be such a great opportunity for us to call and talk to you about hunting in Norway. And you kind of recruited Jorgen begrudgingly into coming on the podcast here. We had to do some slick talking. How are you doing today, Jorgen?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah, good deal. So,
Yes.
so Bear, let's talk a little bit about where you're from and how you ended up in Norway, because you don't sound like a Norwegian.
I don't know whether to take that as a compliment or not, but I was born and raised in Maine, over in the States there, and went to college on the East Coast. I got started in dog mushing way back when, and that's how I met my wife. She was also a dog musher, but she is Norwegian, and she wanted to go home. So after we got married, we moved back to Norway and bought a house and started a family here. I've got two sons, and I've been here for about 12 years, yeah, something like that.
Wow. And before we started rolling this part of it, you and Jorgen were actually, communicating in Norwegian or Norse. What do you prefer to call?
Yep.
What is it called? Is it called Norse or Norwegian?
Norwegian in English would be norsk.
Okay.
So like with a K at the end.
Okay.
In Norwegian.
Right. But so you've obviously picked up the whole language. Is Norwegian, would Norwegian be the common language in your house?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, my wife's English is perfect, and my kids are bilingual, but for the very most part, we speak Norwegian. My job is in Norwegian. Everything happens in Norwegian here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, your English is you haven't lost any of that. That's for sure. So being bilingual, I always thought it would really be cool for my kids to be bilingual, but living in Bear Branch, Indiana, what's the opportunity other than, I've encouraged them to learn Spanish and stuff like that, but you know how that in the United States, that just, unless you're using it every day, there's no reason. Recently we hunted with Shorty Gorham down in South Texas, and some Hispanics pulled up beside us in a truck. He jumps out and he starts talking to him in Spanish, and just like it was English to him. So we just don't live in a part of the United States where being bilingual is necessary, I guess you could say.
Absolutely. Yeah, I get that. It was a little bit the same in Maine. I mean, you could have, if you wanted to, you had the opportunity to learn French, French Canadian.
Right.
But it was not something you needed to learn. So I regret it now, but I didn't take the opportunity when I had it back then to learn.
Well, Jorgen, you're the guy that really intrigues me, because you are a Norwegian native and your English is better than mine. So how are you today, Jorgen?
I'm fine.
Great. So Steve and I wish Steve was here. He would really enjoy this part of the podcast. He's still on his road trip to the the White River Refuge. He's out there for his annual hunt that he goes with some old friends. Hopefully he's bringing back some good recorded interviews with the guys in camp there that we can use on the podcast. But today is all about hunting in Norway. And I know there are going to be people in the United States or our listeners here in the U.S. that are going to say, why are these guys talking to people in Norway? Well, if you think about it, Norway has been in existence since prior to 800 BC, 800 AD is when the Norse culture actually came about, and there are several hundreds of thousands of immigrants that have come here. You guys were hunting hounds and hunting with dogs a long time before we ever started hunting with dogs. Do you know any of the history on dog hunting or hunting with hounds in Norway, Jorgen?
No, not exactly, but I know we have a lot of Norwegian breeds in hounds who are very old breeds.
Yeah.
So,
what are some of those breeds?
You have a breed called Dunker, Hygen, Halden Hound, and that's the main Norwegian hounds.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Can you translate any of that for us, Bear? So that
he did a pretty good job there. There's a breed of dog called it's a hare dog called like he said, a Dunker, and it's just called it's a Dunker hound.
Uh-huh.
And then he's got the Halden hound, which is it's sort of similar to a walker, but it's a little bit stockier, but similar markings and that kind of thing. So, and then the last one you said what was the last one you said, Jorgen?
Hygen.
What do you use that for, Jorgen?
You use those breeds for mostly hare hunting, but in the beginning all of them were foxhounds. They used them to hunt foxes, but at the late 60s, 70s, there weren't any foxes left because of illness, and so they just used them for hare more and more. And
okay.
So I think the Norwegian breeds got destroyed in a way for fox hunting. There are too much hounds with only will to hunt, chase hares.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little stupid, I think, but that's the way it is.
Yeah. So did that come about because of outside influence, or was that was directly related to the fact that the fox population had declined? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there weren't so much fox to hunt anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you,
it's a big illness that wiped out. It was something crazy, like 90% of the foxes here in Norway.
Yes. But some of those hounds are very good to chase fox, but it's too many of those hare hounds and those lines.
Okay,
to get a clean fox hound.
So you've lost some of the historical traits of your foxhound because of the decline in the fox in Norway, is what you're saying. And tell us again what took your foxes?
It was a diseased bear. What does it call on English? Scab.
A scab, yeah. It's like a sarcoptic mange.
Okay. Yeah.
So that spread like wildfire through the foxes, and after, the thing is they lose all their fur. So after, they get it, and after one hard winter, they're done.
Yeah, no doubt.
So that wiped out a bunch of them.
So what are your winters like there in Norway?
Here in North, it's very long, from October, November to the last snow outside my house disappear in May, June.
Okay.
and so it's pretty long.
Yeah, and what kind of?
And
Go ahead, Jorgen.
and it's because of the temperature. It's cold all the time, so the snow doesn't go away.
Yeah. So what are your daytime highs like, and what are your nighttime lows like where you're at, Jorgen?
Right now.
Well, I mean, just like an average through the year, just a typical winter.
Genomsnittstemperatur genom vintern.
It's through the winter. It's maybe minus 10, 15 through the winter.
Yeah.
But,
so in the low teens, single digits teens there, Chris. Yeah.
That's warmer than what I thought it would be, because when you look at the map, the world map, you guys are pretty far north there. And so
he's right on the coast, though, eh?
Yes.
Okay.
Right on the coast. So it's a bit hotter here, but only 20 kilometers away here, it can be 30 minus through the winter.
Yeah.
So
and that's kind of a sustained temperature, I would say, in the interior there.
Yep.
So there's a lot of cool stuff that has come out of Norway, in my mind. I mean, you look at the Norse culture. There are modern day TV shows about the Norse culture, and I'm sure they get it all wrong. But they're still, I'm sure they get it all wrong. But it's still something that intrigues people, and the fact that like things like skiing and a lot of our winter sports came out of that Norse culture. Sea travel came out of the Norse culture. It's an amazing culture that most of us in the United States don't think a whole lot about a lot of times, unless you're into things like winter sports and downhill skiing and things like that. So yeah, I think that's what ties us together in the United States with the Norwegian culture, is not only the winter sports, but like I said, you guys have been pursuing game with dogs for a long, long time. And let's talk a little bit about those dogs that you're using, and the hunting culture and different things in Norway. So I'd like to try to maybe bridge the gap between the common values of hunting in the United States and Norway. And one of the things that intrigued me when I first talked to the two of you was the strong hunting culture that you have in Norway. How common is it for someone in Norway to hunt?
Oh, very, very common. Yeah, more common than it is in the United States. I mean, not everybody here hunts, but I would say that the percentage must be much higher than the average in the States.
And I think we get the idea that the United States is the cradle of civilization for hunting, and we lose sight of the fact that hunting is an ancient tradition in other places. And one of the things that we talked about before was the fact that businesses still close down for talk a little bit about that, for what the attitude of the local people are for hunting in Norway. Bear, go ahead.
Which one of us?
Bear, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. There's an absolute understanding amongst the Norwegian people that hunting is part of their culture, and something that most, or a large percentage of Norwegians partake in. So it's still it is not uncommon the first, at least here around where I live. I live 20 hours south of Jorgen, but
no kidding.
It's not
20 hours.
20 hours, yeah.
Wow.
He lives way up. I'm trying to think of where he would even be. He'd be like up in Coldfoot, Alaska, and I'd be way down in Fairbanks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but here it's not uncommon at all for people to take a week off of work or shut down their business for a week to go moose hunting when the moose hunting season starts.
Is
it the same way up where you're at, Jorgen?
Yes, it's the same. People take days off to hunt, but we have, I think, a little different from South Norway, because it's actually it is a few people here who are total anti-hunters, and especially with hounds and dogs, and we have some trouble up here with that.
Here, I mean, here too, for sure. I mean, it's not, but sort of painting with a broad brush, I would say that as far as subsistence hunting, hunting for meat, there's less of a kickback here than I've experienced in the States. But the hunting with hounds, it's more socially acceptable here, but I wouldn't say that it's across the board.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say everybody's on board with it. There's still a lot of misunderstandings about what we're doing, and a lot of misinformation out there.
Yeah, a lot of.
I think that comes from when you say you go out hunting with the hounds. Everybody who doesn't know what that is, they just think of England with packs of hounds chasing that fox and tear it apart. That's the picture I get from the people who doesn't hunt. And
yeah. There's even here, and even in today's culture with all our social media, and we've never lived in a time in human existence where information is passed so freely. It still amazes me how many people just don't understand what hunting with hounds is. Even other hunters, even other hunters don't understand what it is. They think that it's a lazy man sport, or when we were bear hunting, I just talked to a guy last night that was on the bear hunt in Arizona with me, and there was one day there, we were averaging anywhere around 10 miles a day on foot to deer hunt in some pretty rugged country. And, lazy people don't do stuff like that. So, but it amazes me that it intrigues me. I mean, I'm just fascinated by it, because I'm kind of I like holding on to tradition, and I don't know of any businesses here that close down for deer season anymore. And that would be equivalent. That would be our equivalency to your moose season. Now, I remember a time in my life when that did happen, and people did close down their businesses. My dad was one of us. We were one of them. We were business owners, and we would shut business down and just not go to work on the Friday before, and usually the Monday and Tuesday after, just so that we could go deer hunting, because our season always starts on a Saturday. So I am happy to hear that that's still alive and well.
Yeah, it definitely is. Certainly not every moose hunter does that, but it's still it still happens frequently enough that if nothing else, I noticed it when I got here as a little bit of a difference, a little bit of a throwback. I remember I used to roll up to farther, really far up northern Maine, Fort Kent. There was a dog sled race up there, and up there people used to still do that 10, 15 years ago. I don't know anymore. It's been a while since I've been up there, but I just noticed it here. It made me a little nostalgic.
Yeah. So, Jorgen, did you listen to the? Have you got a back? Well, before we get to that, do you have a background in just hounds, or were you? Have you dabbled in dog mushing, or are you accomplished dog musher, or what else do you do besides run hounds?
I always hunted. It's just been a part of me since I was born. My dad always took me and my brother with us, and for as long as I can remember, I hunted. But I became I hunted fox and moose and grouse up in the mountains and everything. And but we didn't use hounds then. We just sat down in a place in the forest and shoot foxes. But 6 years ago, I bought my first hound.
Mm-hmm.
So and that that changed my life in hunting. But it's more than just hunting. It's to lay down as much work as you can in the hound and see how it turns out, and it's just amazing. Start with a puppy and work from there.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
It's important for me.
Well, Bear,
I couldn't imagine a life without a hound.
Well, then you are a houndsman for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told you, Chris.
Yeah.
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 Because it's up here, it's not a tradition with the hounds. I think maybe in 100 kilometers radius, I know about 6 hounds. So it's not so very common.
Yeah. Yeah. Bear, what's it like down in your neck of the woods?
Down here is a lot of tight forest, a lot of pine forest. Very steep terrain. You know, I live on a little bit of land carved out in the side of a hill. It's steep above me, steep on each side, and steep below me. And it's cold. It's real cold here. Mm-hmm. Right now it's not cold, but during the winters we'll have months at a time at 15, 20 below.
And that's Fahrenheit?
That would be Fahrenheit, yep.
Okay. So you got months on end like that.
Yeah, it's happened. It's happened before. The last couple winters have been a little bit more mild. We've gotten more snow, but they've been temperature-wise a little mild, a little bit more mild. So maybe in the single digits, low teens.
Yeah. So how many other houndsmen are in your area surrounding you there, Bear?
There's definitely more here than up around Jorgen. Yeah, there's just in I would say within 10 miles of my house, I know of 4 or 5 other houndsmen. But none of them are fox hunters. They're all hunting hares with dunkers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would a dunker be? Would it be similar to our beagle?
It's a little bit bigger than a beagle. Yeah. What is that big beagle? A harrier.
Okay.
It's real similar to a harrier. A harrier. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They tend to be a little bit shorter legged, not as much anymore. The genetics got so tight there that they had to cross out to they brought in some Finnish hounds.
Okay.
To get those genetics out of the bottleneck they ended up in. And now they've got a little bit of length on the legs and things like that, but they tend to be kind of long in their back, a little bit shorter legs than like a walker, for example. So yeah, tough-headed dogs, pretty slow-moving, cold-nosed. They're interesting dogs, not a but they're like Jorgen was talking about earlier. You know, those are hare dogs through and through.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
My first hound was a dunker,
Uh-huh.
a female. She was 54 centimeters high and weighed about 22, 23 kilos.
Mm-hmm.
She was
About 50
excellent hare hound. Yeah.
Say
She
that
was
again.
a good
Say that
chaser.
again, Bear.
It's about 50 pounds. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I want to kind of take us back, Bear. I'm sorry, Jorgen. I want to know. You grew up hunting, maybe a spot and stalk, or just going out and sitting in the woods, like you said. What drew you to become involved with hounds? What was it that made you reach out there and say, I want to hunt with a dog?
It's actually I hunted a lot of moose, and there we use dogs for that too. And I found out I wanted a dog, but I didn't know what. So I just started reading and watching movies and all that, and I just found out I will go and buy a dunker, and I did, and here I am.
Yeah.
But,
so what movies did you watch?
Everything on YouTube. Yeah.
Did you watch Where the Red Fern Grows?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, I didn't know if that might have been one of them that you picked up and kind of drew you into hounds. That's kind of a staple among American houndsmen is Where the Red Fern Grows, Old Yeller, things.
Old Yeller.
Yep. Things like that kind of get those juices flowing. What was another one, Bear? Savage Sam? Remember Savage
Sam? Oh, man, I loved that one. That was a great one.
Yeah.
Savage Sam. And I guess, was Sounder just a book, or did they make a movie out of that?
I don't remember the movie Sounder. Gary Robertson talked about the movie Voice of Bugle Ann. Did you remember that from our podcast with Gary?
I do remember him talking about that, yeah, but I don't remember the movie.
Yeah, I mean that's an old black and white movie, but the voice of Bugle Ann was actually a foxhound that his grandfather owned. They came down and they came down and recorded that hound's voice to use for the movie Voice of Bugle Ann. So I had after Gary said that, I had to go back and watch the movie, of course.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So let's talk about hunting. We've kind of hit around it. We've talked about the things that you guys are hunting over there. We've mainly talked about on our podcast. We've talked about coon hunting, and we've talked about lion hunting. We've talked about bear hunting. We've touched on deer hunting a couple times. But what are you guys hunting with those hounds over there in Norway? Jorgen, what kind of things are you hunting up in your country?
With my hounds, I hunt mostly fox, and if I get the opportunity, I will hunt lynx. But that's not so many of them. So it's a lot of fox hunting with the hounds. Mm-hmm. It is. So
and what
that's
types?
The most fun too.
And most fun. Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what types of hounds are you using for fox?
Now I have a young hound who is a mix of Russian hound and a treeing walker foxhound mix, and she's 7 months old now. Mm-hmm. She's the sister of Bear's young hound.
Okay.
Yeah. So I use that now, and it's a lot of training. She's young, but earlier I had her father, and he was imported dog hound from Skinner Creek hunts. He was a treeing walker, and he was imported to Norway when he was 1 year old. Started to fox hunt with him, and they mixed him with a Norwegian hound, and then I bought the father of my young now, and he was extremely good.
Where did you import this hound from?
I didn't import this hound, but the owner imported it from Skinner Creek Hounds down at I don't know, America.
Okay.
Yeah, they're in BC. There, Chris.
Yeah,
It's Skinner Creek Outfitters over there.
Okay.
They do.
So,
They're a little bit unusual. They actually do some brown bear. Most of the hunting they do, I've talked to the guy a little bit. Most of the hunting they do is actually brown bear with their hounds.
So that's British Columbia, and they're brown bear hunting most of the time with those hounds.
That's my understanding. Yeah,
Wow.
He's interesting dude. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lead for a future podcast. Sounds to me like.
Yeah, for sure. He's an interesting guy.
Yeah. Well, let's get back to it. So you're mainly hunting foxes.
Yeah.
Anything else that you're chasing around with those dogs up there, Jorgen?
Not with the hounds. It's for most foxes, and I have a German hunting terrier also, mix fox terrier, who I use in dens when the hound chase a fox here. It will often run straight down to inside the den, and then we release a terrier in to fight with the fox, and it comes out and we shoot it. So
Okay, all right.
yeah.
And you're sending a terrier down the hole, and what kind of terrier are you using? Are you using like a Jagd terrier or?
Yes, it's her father is a German hunting terrier, Jagd terrier.
Okay.
And he was mixed with a fox terrier.
Nice.
And I got that from South Sweden, and she's 1.5 years old now, and I think I shot probably 10 foxes for her. She's tough as hell.
How would you like that to be your job? Here's a hole. Go down there and fight with this fox.
No doubt, she gives 100% every time she go down there and fight, and but she gets some foxes are very hard, especially the females, so they fight back, and it doesn't always look too good on the terrier, but she's a tough one.
So let's tie this together a little bit. What's the value of hunting foxes? You know, why do you guys have? Is it part of a management plan, or do you have a high population of foxes? Go ahead, Jorgen.
We have a very high population of foxes. It was a few years ago. Me and my brother and my father, we shot probably 80 foxes in one season.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we get also paid to shoot foxes by the mans who own the sheeps, because the foxes the foxes takes a lot of lambs. So we get paid for each fox we shoot. But it's not because of that I hunt. I do it for myself, and because I love doing that.
Right. So tell us what that fox looks like in Norway. Is it comparable? Barry, you might need to answer this. I'm not sure, but what's it comparable to a fox in America? Are we talking gray fox? Are we talking? Go ahead.
Red fox. Yep. No, this is your standard red fox. They're exactly the same animal.
And they're preying on sheep.
Yeah, they're preying on sheep, and it's also, in addition to sort of a domestic agriculture aspect to this whole thing, there's also a wildlife aspect. There are no apex predators here in Norway, virtually none anymore. There's a couple of small packs of wolves, but they're managed very, very carefully, and there's very few bears. So realistically, apart from maybe the lynx, the fox is pretty high on the food chain here. So they're eating a lot of like Jorgen said, lambs, but they're also eating, killing and eating a lot of the grouse, both the adults and the chicks, a lot of the capercaillie chicks, and a lot of the roe deer fawns.
That's amazing.
Uh,
I don't think we ever.
So
I don't think we ever consider a red fox in the United States in this area. They'll raid a chicken house, but we never consider them a threat to small mammals, such as the ungulates, the sheep, the deer fawns, things like that. So,
well, it was real interesting, because it happened in Maine as well, that once they got the wolves out of there, the coyotes kind of stepped up and took over that niche as the apex predator of that area, and started taking down, went from rodent hunters to taking down things like white-tailed deer and, even moose in Maine. And it's the same thing that's happened here in Norway with the foxes, is that, they have no competition. They're able to get bigger and bigger. I know somebody recently that just shot one that was over 40 pounds.
A fox?
Fox. And that's an absurdly big fox.
Yeah, our coyotes here, everybody says, if they see a coyote, that thing was as big as a German Shepherd, and
yeah, that's
a German Shepherd weighs 80 pounds. And we do a lot of coyote trapping here, and a 40-pound male coyote is a nice size coyote. So that is just crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, this was a monster. I guess it wasn't 40 pounds. What would that be, Jorgen? Det var en nå nylig som tok en på 14,2.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, 14.2 kilos, so it's like 37, 38
Close
pounds.
Close enough.
But that's extreme. That's really extreme.
That is an extreme, yeah. The biggest one I've ever taken was 9 kilos, which would be about 20.
Yeah, 37 pounds is big enough in any language. So
yeah,
that's amazing stuff. And so how big is your Yog fox terrier mix that you're sending in the hole to run these out, Jorgen?
She's about 5 kilograms,
which is 15 pounds.
14, 15 pounds. Yeah.
Yeah. She's the devil itself.
Well, it's like they always, they say in the States, they say it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog.
Yes, correct.
It sounds like she's got plenty of it. And I've got a funny story about Yog Terriers. I need to get this guy on the podcast because he's a hoot. He and I used to run a lot of dogs together, and we're partners on a few original mountain cur dogs. But he got the wild idea that he was going to get these Yog Terriers, and he trapped a raccoon, and just to see what their prey drive was. And after they tore the cage apart, which I might have to edit this part out, but they tore the cage apart, they killed the raccoon, and then after the fight was out of the raccoon, they decided that they were going to fight each other. So, they don't. A lot of times they don't know when to quit.
Yeah, correct.
How does your Yog fox cross? How does it get along with your other dogs, Jorgen?
And she's the best dog I ever had. She's pretty mild in her head at home, but as soon as it's hunting, she understands it and completely snaps. So she's very kind to the kids and the other hound I have, and never trouble. But trouble for a fox.
Yeah, trouble for a fox, I'd say.
Yes.
Even a 40-pound fox.
Yeah. But the biggest fox aren't always the worst. is the small females, especially late in the season when they found their dens. They're gonna raise cubs, and they are tough. The male foxes are the easiest ones.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can tell you that if you ever tried to break into my house and hurt my kids, you know, my wife is just a little bitty thing, but she's going to be the one you'd have to deal with. She's like a grizzly bear.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth? My wife's the same way.
Yeah.
Weighs 150 pounds sopping wet. I'm closer to 300, and boy, people aren't afraid of me, but they're scared to death of her.
Yeah. I just put on a good show, but when it comes right down to it, man, I would not want to. I mean, I've tried this before, and getting between my wife and her kids is not a good thing. Yeah, it can get pretty brutal and violent. So, all right, let's Bear, you and I talked about a few things that you're hunting a little different game down your way than what Jorgen is up there. So what are you chasing around?
I mean, I'm hunting pretty similar to what Jorgen's hunting. You know, I'm hunting for the very most part foxes with my hounds.
Okay.
You know, they do the you know, I've done some moose hunting with the Norwegian elk hounds. You know, but they're not a hound. They're more of a Spitz type. A Spitz type of dog. You know, at this point I've focused purely on foxes. I've done a little bit of hare hunting. It's a lot of fun. The first time I went hunting with a hound ever was hare hunting. And, you know, that's kind of what got me, you know, what hooked me in all this. But, you know, I knew part of my interest in this started because of an issue with sick foxes around here.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a big kennel of sled dogs, and I suddenly had a bunch of mangy foxes, like literally mangy foxes, hanging around my dogs, and, you know, starting to act a little bit crazy. So I didn't want that.
Yeah. So you were trying to protect your sled dog pack from these foxes. So you got into the sport out of necessity. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, in a sense, you know, ultimately I could have just, you know, sat out and, you know, threw some dead livestock down on the field and picked them out, you know, picked them off with a good rifle and a scope from the kitchen window. But that didn't seem like as much fun. I figured if I was going to have to thin out the population here, I might as well have some fun doing it. And,
sure.
You know, I've been a dog trainer for a lot of years. You know, I've been running sled dogs for 20, 22, 23 years, and have always wanted a hound. It's always fascinated.
Did you listen to our recent podcast with Arlie Reynolds?
I did. Yeah, that was a great one. Arlie's he's a genius. That guy is, I would absolutely say that he is the foremost expert in working dog nutrition. Absolutely.
Yeah. I could have talked to that guy for like 4 hours. It just intrigued me. A lot of the things that he was talking about, I'm sure, you know, with your history in sled dogs, you had already been doing a lot of that.
I certainly have, but, you know, it's because of it's because of Arlie. You know,
right.
What he talked about on your podcast, you know, on this podcast wasn't news to me, but 15 years ago, it definitely was.
Right.
You know, when he first started talking about it. So,
yeah.
You know, Arlie really came and revolutionized the sort of art of feeding.
And I think it is an art. You know, there's a science to it, definitely, and that's what he bridged the gap in, was between the science and the art. And that's why Steve and I wanted to have him on so bad,
Yeah.
is because that is something we depend on these dogs every day for top performance, the same as a sled dog musher does, but we haven't been exposed to that kind of information.
No.
And yeah, I can't imagine a houndsman that wouldn't have a lot of takeaways from that episode. And that's kind of what drew the two of us together too, was the fact that you've got a history in sled dog racing and mushing and things like that, and then you're a houndsman too. So it was a pretty natural fit for us to get together and do a podcast like this. So
yeah, I was surprised that you asked me, but I was thrilled at the same time. I've listened to every podcast you guys have done at least once, and have enjoyed them all. So, but yeah, the one with Arlie was that was a great one.
Some of them aren't worth listening to more than once.
Oh, I don't know about that. Give me enough time. I'm sure I'm going to listen to them all again.
Yeah.
I hear you've got some good ones coming up here soon.
Yeah, this is one of them. Jorgen, I guess my question for you is it common for? I've talked to Bear, and he said that a lot of Norwegians speak really, have no problem understanding English. So when we look at our analytics for the podcast, we see different places in Norway and Sweden where people are listening, and we want to be valuable listening to people in Norway. So are you finding the podcast to be helpful or interesting?
Yeah, I have listened to a few of them, but I hadn't had time to so much because I didn't know about the podcast until you sent me a message. So it's very interesting.
Well, good.
It's actually yeah.
Do you ever?
And
go ahead.
I think you going to more people from here north are going to listen now. And that after this, yeah.
Good. Yeah. So that's enough. That's enough of me pumping up my own tires here with the podcast stuff. Let's get back to what we're actually here to talk about. I want to know about these dogs that you're using and these hounds that you're using, because obviously every place you go, I don't care if you've got the best dogs ever, if you take them to a new area, that you're going to face challenges as a hunter and also as a houndsman. Your dogs are going to face challenges. You're going to face challenges. So I want to know what sort of things that you're looking for in a hound to chase a fox in Norway.
I actually I always choose a puppy after hardworking parents and grandparents, and they have to have good fur and feet and a hard head. That's the main thing I look at, because it's cold up here. It's shitty conditions with ice, snow, and raining, and yeah. So it has to have very good feet.
Yeah.
So that's why very much hounds doesn't have good feet, and they are useless.
So you're looking for a durable hound. When I say durable, I'm talking about conformation, density of coat, and one that's got drive and heart.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's why when we the pups that I and Bear has, we mix it with a Russian hound, the father with a Russian female, and the Russian hound has very good fur and very good feet. So that's what we are looking for, to get good fur and good feet in a hound who has a very hard head, hard working.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Barry, you got something you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what he said. You know, I've got this pup from him, and then I've got a walker, and you know, the pup is 7 months old, and he is just in every way he's tougher than the walker is. You know, I'm not hacking on walkers. You know, I like walkers a lot, but he's just you know, he's got better coat, better feet, a harder head. You know, I'm seeing why they did the breeding that they did. You know, and then a lot of people here will do. You know, they'll stick to a specific breed. You know, they'll stick to just walkers, they'll stick to just Haldens, or they'll stick to just Dunkers.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't do the you know, crossbreeds are not popular here but you know, I didn't really care,
Right.
which is what intrigued me about you know, Jorgen's pups, were that, you know, they were bred on merit.
They were bred for performance.
Performance, and not just performance anywhere, but performance in these conditions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it snows a lot. It gets, you know, it's cold. The soil can be pretty rocky. There's a lot of shale in the soil, so it's sharp.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they can really mess themselves up. You know, my walker is a much lighter, smaller dog than old Buzz, this pup of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, she's injured much more than he is, and it's not a conformation thing. It's just her feet get cut up, and he'll run right behind her on the same ground, and his won't.
So when you say walker, are you talking about a treeing walker, or are you talking about a running walker?
She's a running walker.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, and we've talked about this several times. We've interviewed, you know, houndsmen from the Southwest, where it's a lot different conditions here. Dry ground lion hunting is different than snow lion hunting, than coon hunting is in the East. You know, we've always talked about, you know, how would my coon hound stack up in the Southwest of the United States, where it's extremely dry conditions, or you know, compared to here, the tracking conditions are more challenging. And then we also have discussed what it would be like to bring one of those dry ground hounds back here to the East and put them in that situation. How would they perform here? So every region has got its own challenges. And
yeah, I was just talking to Brett Vaughn about that last week.
Mm-hmm.
Was talking to him about, you know, because he's got those dry ground lion dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And that I was wondering a little bit about that. You know, how would those dogs then stack up, you know, going from hot, arid, you know, desert to steep, cold Norway?
About like taking a snowbird and putting them in Maine, I would say. You know, you take somebody
like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That's always an intriguing thing, and the cool thing is, the common thread here is, you know, people in Norway, people in the Southwest, people in Alaska, we're all breeding our dogs for the conditions we have in our area, and we just it intrigues me to know that people are breeding the types of dogs they need for their own area. It does you no good to breed for a hound that I use for raccoons in Indiana.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
I mean, I think it depends a little bit. You know, I think it depends a little bit on what you're breeding for. You know, if you want a dog with maybe a little bit more speed, you know, if you're trying to get a little bit more speed in your dogs, or something like that, you know, I'm still learning, and I'm still learning about this,
Mm-hmm.
you know, hound thing. But, you know, in a sled dog world, you know, I would be tempted if I was looking for a specific quality. I would be tempted to breed to a dog that, in virtually every other way would not fit into my program, but brings to the table something that maybe my dogs don't.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. But to breed for the stereotypical, what's going to be successful on game in the Midwest, and try to form a breeding program, that'd be a really, really big challenge, I would say.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk about moose hunting with dogs in Norway, because that just amazes me.
Yeah.
So
well,
how many?
Jorgen's
Go ahead.
The moose hunter. So.
Yeah, I have hunted a lot of moose with dogs, and it's very fun to hunt. And the dogs, we walk into the forest and just release the dog, and he go out searching for moose. And when he finds the moose, hopefully he will bay it up, and it stands where he find it, and then start barking and then we can sneak up on it and hopefully shoot it. But many times the moose starts running at full speed when the dog is coming, but we are teams that hunt moose here, and maybe we are 10 people in the forest who are sitting on around them. And one will shoot the moose if it does all right.
Right.
It's very interesting.
So how many dogs are you allowed to put down on a moose? Are you allowed to turnless?
That's it's no number.
One, I think.
But yeah, one. But sometimes we release young dogs on moose with a older hound to get the young one going, and so it's best with one dog. The moose doesn't get too shaky and starts running. So
yeah. So you got a 1,500-pound moose standing there looking down at one dog barking at it. It doesn't feel threatened as much as if you turn 4 or 5 dogs loose at one time.
Yeah, the moose will start run directly, and when you release the dog on the moose, it's important that the dog isn't too aggressive. It's important to start barking very low and build up, and then the moose will be bayed up faster than with a dog who is running in full speed to the moose and just whoa, 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 whoa. Then often the moose just starts running as hell. So
we talked a little bit about that, Chris, when you and I talked. Yeah, it's the truth. There's
Go ahead, finish your thought there.
You can't, it's not actually legal here to use your hounds loose. I guess it would be legal to use them on a leash.
Okay.
I think, is that right, Jorgen? Couldn't you trail them with on a leash?
You can trail, and that's what's illegal is a dog who is running after the moose and barking. That's illegal.
Okay.
Yeah. So because they mean it's the moose is going to be very stressed and all that.
Yeah.
Right.
But
is there a size restriction? We talked about size restrictions on
we did, dogs. Yeah, we did. For the moose hunting dogs, there's no size restriction.
Okay.
But for the hounds, you can hunt different game with hounds. In Norway, it is actually allowed to hunt deer with hounds.
Okay.
But then you have to have a hound that's under 16.8 inches, I think it was, at 41 centimeters.
Yes.
So like our hounds, We can hunt foxes. We can hunt lynx, badgers. I guess that's about it, isn't it? Can we hunt anything else with our hounds? Nothing we want to hunt.
No,
nothing
we
that we
talk
can
about here.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say.
The neighbors' cats. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they've got some breeds over here that are, they use dachshunds quite a bit, and then they'll use, there's this little Swedish breed of hound called a drever, I don't know what you would call it in English, a drever hound. And then the smaller 13-inch beagles,
Yeah.
You can use those. So people use those for the roe deer, because that's what we've got over here, are the roe deer.
Mm-hmm.
And then the red stags, like they've got over in Scotland and New Zealand. You can hunt those with these short-legged dogs, but you can't hunt them with the hounds.
I'm just envisioning being a retired fish and wildlife officer. I'm envisioning me walking up to you and measuring your hound.
Yeah. Talk about a constant headache, eh?
No kidding. No kidding for everybody involved. It's like, oh, this one's 16.2 inches. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to write you a ticket.
That's got early retirement written all over it, eh?
Yeah. 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 Well, what else do we need to talk about?
Well, we've definitely got that with, part of what makes hunting with hounds here in Norway a little bit challenging is that you can't hunt with packs.
Okay, explain
you're limited to one dog. There's a little bit of leeway, like Jorgen said, if you're letting a young dog out with an older dog
mm-hmm.
to gain a little bit of experience. But, that's kind of a gray area even, here. Hey, guys, come on. Got my hounds wrestling on the couch right now.
That's good.
But you're only allowed to let one loose at a time. So, you can't build a pack based on the strengths of the individuals. You've got to have a dog that can really do it all. That can pick up a trail and trail it and, do every aspect of the hound's job from start to finish. And that, you're severely limited
mm-hmm.
doing it with one individual dog.
I think it would be extremely challenging to train a new young hound on that aspect, but we do it with coon hounds a lot. The trend is more and more to take if you start with a properly bred hound and you give them the right exposure, then they have a lot of natural talents that they thrive on and they draw upon to be successful. But I guess in the United States, I'm as guilty as anybody, and I don't keep a lot of hounds, but I've got too many right now because my hunting is limited. So, and I mean that by the amount of space that I have to hunt and the amount of time that I have to hunt and the amount of game that I have to hunt. So realistically, I would be much better off having one hound that I can concentrate all my time into and train that hound, spent the time with it all the time, undivided attention to that hound. So in a way, I think it's kind of good that you guys are developing stock like that, because every hound that you keep has to be able to do the job on their own for your particular game.
Yeah, I mean the quality of the dogs here, and I don't know. I got into it after I left the States, so I don't, I can't make any comment. Comparing the quality of the dogs, but the quality of the dogs here is really pretty remarkable from, from my point of view, especially coming from a mushing background. It's sort of remarkable to see the percentage of the pups from each individual litter, what percentage of those dogs, go on to be, totally, decent dogs. You don't have a lot of total duds, which surprised me. I would have expected that you would have found that you would have had those dogs,
right?
Well, I think that half of the litter were usable.
Do you think some of that is because that you can only turn one hound loose, so you put more training time into each individual dog? Or do you think that it's because the overall genetic makeup is superior?
I mean, I wouldn't say the genetic makeup is superior because, the at least, the dogs that Jorgen and I are using, these days, they're, a lot of those genetics go back to the genetics, that are in the States.
Mm-hmm.
Not entirely, but a lot of them do. So that, the genetics, a lot of them are coming from the United States anyway. So I think that it is I think it does break down to the amount of time you're using training those dogs. It's the same with the Huskies. Is, a pup that I use, a natural talent that I use 5 minutes with is not going to be nearly as good as a total, bozo that I put 10,000 hours into.
Sure. Yeah.
That bozo is going to end up being a better dog in the end. And I think that it works out the same, regardless of what type of dog you're working with. And I've, at least found that to be the case with the hounds. Buzz has been a joy to work with because he's the natural talent, and I've been able to put a lot of time into him. Vidpi, my walker, she came to me later on in her life. She was 2 years old by the time I got her. She had not been properly started, so I've spent a lot of time with her, but she doesn't have the raw natural talent that Buzz does. And, we're still getting it done, but it's, I think so much of it has to do with the effort you put into the training. And also, a little, to go back to what Arlie was saying, I think a lot of it has to do with, your overall program and how you're taking care of those dogs.
Right. Well, that leads me to another question. Okay. So, I can get on the internet here or on Facebook or whatever, and within 4 or 5 hours of my house, of where I live right now, I can find a hound of good genetics that I can use to hunt. How challenging is it in Norway to find dogs that are going to be dogs that you want to spend time on? How much of a challenge is it to find quality pups in Norway?
Well, I drove 20 hours to get my last pup. So,
Jorgen, what's your opinion on that?
It's far between every hound here, so you just have to take your time and drive that car. So it's not so many often, but as we talked about earlier, most of the hounds you can use them to hunt with. It's very few bad dogs because no one wants a bad dog. The life is too short to have a bad hound. And
I like that.
Yeah, but that's true. I wouldn't use
agree.
10 years on a hound that didn't work.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So are there breeders in your country that are you guys trying to develop your own breeding programs, or what's the status there? If the hounds are limited then how are you going to overcome that to make sure that you have hounds for the future?
It's many private person who find on Facebook different hounds to use in breeding, and it's about knowing people that have good hounds, and some of them have are breeding constantly on good dogs. So, but it's very many private person who makes one breeding and often because they want a pup self from the hound he has. So
right,
yeah,
that was the case with your last litter, wasn't it, Jorgen? That was what happened with your last litter, right? Was that you wanted a pup, and the owner of the owner of the mother, Robin and Karina, wanted a pup too. Yeah,
absolutely. It was we wanted only 2 pups, so we can have one each, but it was 7 or 8. So it was no problem selling them. So, and we wasn't out for money or anything. We just wanted to give the hounds a good home, and that's more important for me. So,
did you drive up there to get that pup, Bear?
I actually didn't drive up there. I hopped on a plane and flew up there to.
Right.
I was able to get one day off from work, so I left work, drove down to the airport, flew up there, grabbed that pup, went back, and went right back to work.
Yeah. I was curious about that. It sounds like that's pretty similar to the United States, really. I mean, a lot of these hounds that the crosses, the puppies come out of dogs that the breeder would actually want to have a pup out of anyway. And so you make the cross, and then you keep the ones that you want to keep, and then you sell the excess hounds.
Yeah, and it's a good confirmation for the other guys who are buying the pups that the owners of the male and female does want a pup for themselves, you know.
Right.
If I wanted a pup from this, and of course the other guys who are buying those pups, it's a confirmation that this is probably very good.
Yeah. Yep. That's good. That's good breeding practices right there. You know, you can't argue with that. Well, we've been rolling on over an hour here, and
really,
yeah. Did it seem like an hour, Jorgen?
No.
Yeah. Once you get into these things, man, it just starts rolling, and you just start talking dogs. And there's so much to talk about when you get 3 people or 4 people or a group of houndsmen together. You know, you can just talk for hours about these hounds. And I really appreciate you guys coming on the podcast and giving us an insight to a culture of hunting that is pretty foreign to most of us back here in the United States. So really appreciate your time, Jorgen.
It was very fun.
I'm sorry?
It was very fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Bear, you got any closing thoughts you want to throw out there? Any messages, hi moms or anything back to Maine or anything?
Sure. Hi, Mom. No, I think I really appreciate you having us on the podcast. You know, I'm still fairly new in this sport, so just having the opportunity to sit down and talk to you guys, and I learn something every time I talk to somebody, even if it's most of the time it's things I want to try, and sometimes it's things well, I'm not going to do that, but I really appreciate having us on. I really appreciate that you created this podcast. This has been a great resource for me, getting started in this sport.
How many pieces of Houndsman XP gear do you have?
Right now, I've just got the hat.
Okay.
I have got the hat, and I'm not going to lie to you, that hat is not going to last that much that hat's not going to last. I've got that on my head so much that I take it off just to make sure it hasn't grown fast to my head. Otherwise,
well, by the time this comes out, we'll have new long sleeve T-shirts, and we'll talk off the podcast about how to get you guys a couple of Houndsman XP shirts that you can wear over there too. So,
nice. That would be great.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. Jorgen, you got anything you want to throw out to us Yankees back here in the United States?
I have a question actually.
Yeah.
Do you use hounds for hunting coyotes and foxes over there?
I understood the fox part. What else did you ask me?
The coyotes.
Coyotes.
Coyotes, yes.
Yeah. Do you use hounds to hunt them?
Yes, we do. And
Okay.
the coyote hounds, we use primarily two different types of hounds to hunt. Well, I'm going to say three, really. We use the first one is kind of intriguing to me. Is the decoy dog, where you train a dog to sit next to you while you're using a call, and then when the coyotes come out, you send the dog out, and it challenges the coyote, and the coyote focuses on the dog and brings the coyote back within close shooting range where you can shoot the coyote. So we actually call those decoy dogs. And then we've got the lurcher type dog that you'll see those in the Great Plains area more, where you drive your truck until you see a coyote in a field, and you drive out into the field and you drop the greyhound type dog out there, and they actually run the coyote down and catch it. And,
okay.
And then we've got the trail type hounds, which are the running walkers that Bear was talking about. Those types of hounds that are scent trail hounds. You put them down in an area that there should be a coyote in. They hunt out. They find a coyote. They trail it up, and they bring the coyote around to the gun.
Okay.
Yep.
Similar to the fox hunt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Fox hunting is not as popular now as coyote hunting, because coyotes and foxes are natural, not natural enemies, but where you have a lot of coyotes, you have less fox. So our fox numbers aren't as high as what we used to have, because our coyote populations have grown so much. So a lot of these foxhounds have been transformed over to coyote type hounds. Much the same as you were talking about your foxhounds going to hares type thing. Foxes and coyotes run different, and so a lot of the traditional foxhound breeds have been bred differently to pursue a coyote than a fox. And then
That's really...
and then our friend Shorty Gorham down in South Texas, we just did a podcast with him, and he actually uses the running walker fox type scenting hound to chase bobcats and mountain lions. So they're pretty versatile. Versatile.
Yeah, the walkers really are versatile. I mean, can I actually ask a question before we wrap up? Chris?
Absolutely.
I'm a little bit curious about we talked a little bit before we got going about the type of breeds that are used over here, or the breeds that are used over here, and a breed that's not used very much over here, definitely used more in Sweden where there's more bear and wild boar, are the plots.
Mm-hmm.
What are your what would your expectations be come into a place like this? If you were going to take your two plots and come over here and hunt foxes, or something like that, what would your expectations be of how would those dogs work, and how would they go about, how would a plot go about solving the puzzle of a fox trail here in Norway?
I think it would be extremely difficult in just a short trip. I believe, and this is completely my opinion, and it's not to raise any controversy. I know there are people that feel like that, certain types of dogs can't operate in different areas. But if you've got a dog that's got prey drive and intelligence, then if you spend enough time, then you can be successful with that type of a hound. Now, obviously, I can tell you that, I've got a boxer here in the house, and she can trail, but she can't trail like my hounds. So when you look at some of the dry ground line dogs of the Southwest versus the coon hound of the Midwest, they've been genetically bred for that specific purpose. But a dog that's intelligent, and I don't know how long it would take because I haven't had the opportunity to do that, to go out there and spend that much time and give a true evaluation of it.
Sure.
But I've seen, for instance, Labrador Retriever is not typically known for its ability to track. It's more of a retriever type dog. But as a canine handler, I watched numerous Labrador Retrievers who were some of the best tracking dogs just because of exposure and concentration and teaching them how to discriminate scent and use what God gave them in that olfactory system. So I think there's always going to be an adjustment period for any dog that you take to a new location, especially something that's as extreme as coming from Bear Branch, Indiana, and going to some place like Norway. But I think that they could be. I think they could be successful. I just don't know that me bringing an older dog from this environment and flying to Norway and putting them down and saying, I'm going to show you these world-class dogs that I have in Indiana, and I'm going to put them in. It's not going to work. They're going to run out there and they're going to turn around and look at me like, what are we doing here? Why am I here? So
it is cool, man.
Yeah.
I have to put something in here.
Yeah.
The hound I was talking about, who was imported from the States. He came here as a 1-year-old hound. He has had chased bears and everything down there, and he came here to hunt foxes. It didn't work out for. I think he used over a year to get that hound to chase foxes like he wanted it to do. So
that's really interesting.
It clearly takes time. It's completely different.
Yeah. I mean, a fox track is going to smell different in your country than it's going to smell here. And it's the same if I go to different parts of the United States. I mean, this is a whole podcast all of its own to talk about that. And I'm sure that I'll probably get some hate mail over this, but things are just different, and a dog's understanding. If I take a dog and I turn him loose here every day, he develops that's what's called a scent picture. He knows what the game smells like on the ground here in this environment. He's got to relearn that when you take that same hound to a different scenting environment. There's just so many different things that a dog has to learn to be successful in different places. And I think the only thing that can overcome that is repetition. I think they're all capable, and I think they could be successful. All of our major breeds there can be successful. It really depends on what your patience is for it.
Sure.
And does it in a way that that's acceptable to you, because we always put the human factor into it. I've already got predisposed in my mind what a dog should do when I set it down here. And if I bring a dog from another area and set it down here and it doesn't perform like that, then human nature is to say, well, this dog isn't good, or this dog isn't, it doesn't perform to my standards. He may still eventually be able to learn it. It just depends on how much time you want to put into it. Just my opinion, for what that's worth.
Right. No, that makes sense to me. Yeah. Cool.
Yep. But I think that if you took a young puppy, a young puppy, I'm talking about, you get a puppy from some of the top performing hounds in the United States, and you bring them to Norway, and you bring them up and raise them in that environment, I believe
Yep.
they can be successful.
Yeah.
We may even try it. May figure it out.
I might have to try that.
Yeah. Yep.
Me too.
Yeah. Yep. What else, guys?
Interesting.
It is very. It is some people here in Norway who imports young puppies here and chase fox and lynx, and it works perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But they import them very young.
Mm-hmm. You know,
it works.
A dog's got it.
Good.
I don't want to run away with
You had a guy. Sorry, what was that?
I don't want to run away with the podcast here, but a dog's got a golden time in its life to learn, and every dog's different. Some dogs are, 4 to 8 months. You're never going to get that time back, that 4-month period that a dog really starts learning. There are several authors and things that wrote books. Richard Walters is one of them. He talks about the scientific data of getting a pup on the 49th day, and how much,
read that,
how much you can teach a dog in that. The 49th day of its life, according to Richard Walters, is the magic day to get a puppy. You can start molding that puppy and making it into what you want it to be. But there's a certain time and a time span in a dog's life where it's going to learn more than it will any other time of its life. It'll learn faster. It'll pick things up naturally. And if you miss that window, that golden window right there, then you're going to have to start using that thing that we all struggle with, and that's patience.
Right. What was it that made you? You said you were a blue tick, or are a blue tick, man from way back. What made you try?
Yeah, I'm not.
Plots.
I'm not a blue tick guy from way back. I actually had a blue tick female when I was about 17 or 18 years old, and then 5 years ago, we started talking about in this area having a bobcat season, and so I had hunted with a few blue ticks out west on lion and bobcat, so I wanted to try to capture some of that. So I actually got my first blue tick female as an adult or on in my hound career about 5 years ago, and since that time, then we've been able to have some pretty fortunate breeding opportunities and different things that serve us real well. The types of dogs that we're producing are serving us really well for the game we're chasing.
Okay. Gotcha.
But I was in plots. I was in plots before then, and I've hunted all breeds of dogs. I've never been a breeder per se. Just time, family, work, all those things combined. Breeding to me is something that 90% of the people, including myself, probably shouldn't do it. And it's shooting from the hip. I like my dog, you like your dog, let's breed him type thing. But there's been a lot of successful crosses made like that, and everybody's free to breed their dogs however they want. But for my personal standard, I didn't classify myself as a breeder. So I just hunted a lot of different breeds over the years.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Gotcha. That's really interesting.
Jorgen, what do you think? Got anything else?
Yeah. No.
All right. Well, guys, I'm going to wrap this thing up. And again, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking time to talk to us. I know that there's a 6-hour difference between here and there, so you guys are going on late night over there. You're closing in on 10 o'clock. Is that right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
6 hours. So it's going on 4 o'clock p.m. and 10 o'clock there. So I appreciate, especially on a Friday night, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that.
We've both got small kids. Our Friday nights are not that exciting anymore.
I remember those days. I remember those days for sure. So, well, I will wrap this thing up and close this out here. Steve usually takes this honor, but like I said, he's closing out his annual hunting trip while this is being recorded. But there's a fox track here, and hopefully I'll get to see this someday. Jorgen and Bear, come over there to Norway and see how you guys hunt. But
You're always welcome.
I appreciate that. If I bring one of these soup hounds from the Midwest over here and I put them down with your hound, on this fox track, I don't know what's going to happen. So no matter what happens, you follow your hound and I'll follow mine.